Antifa have managed to make complete arseholes of themselves again. This time by attacking a meeting being held by Sargon of Akkad and some guy from the Ayn Rand Institute. Antifa, in their infinite wisdom, decided that these guys are fascists, they had no right to speak, and they shut down that meeting. They stormed into the lecture hall, they'd let firebombs or smoke bombs off outside. They were intimidating, aggressive, cracked a few people, set off alarms through the megaphone siren, complete shambles. On what planet is it sensible to call Sargon of Akkad a fascist, or the other guy for that matter? On what planet do you have the right to shut down open and democratic discussion? On what planet do you have the right to start setting alarms off, setting sirens off in people's ears, getting threatening, throwing your weight around? I would be quite happy to attend a talk given by Sargon of Akkad. What right have you got to tell me what I can and can't listen to, you objectionable little pricks? I first became aware of this issue on Grim Jim's channel. I recommend checking out his video, and I agree with him. As he says, those of us on the left, Grim Jim and myself, who are trying to offer an alternative view of the left, what the left really is capable of, what our real history is just made significantly harder when numbnut twats like you are carrying on like this. You should be ashamed of yourselves. It's a tactical error, it's going to blow up in your faces, it's going to make the entire broad left look increasingly ridiculous, and it by definition hands victory to your opponents, to our political opponents. Finally, I want to talk about the issue of no platforming. In the 70s and in the 80s, neo-Nazi groups would go around throwing bricks through Asian people's windows. If they found Asians, usually when they were by themselves and there was a gang of 4 or 5 fascists, they would kick the shit out of them. They would go around intimidating and terrifying people. You do not have a democratic right to do that. They are a cancer, and you remove them from your communities before they have a chance to spread. If you think that these people have a democratic right to smash democracy, they have a democratic right to terrify, intimidate, to harm and sometimes kill people, you're a dickhead yourself. In the 70s and 80s there was militant anti-fascism, and it dealt with them. It physically stopped those people from growing and developing. It stopped them in their tracks. Organisations like Anti-Fascist Action. It is now a changed situation. They are no longer using those tactics, and they are gaining ground. The far right, a small section of them, the populist right, a bigger section of them, conservatives and rebel conservatives and classical liberals, all opponents of the left. They are gaining grounds, they are interconnected with each other, there's contradictions, it's a very diverse group. No platforming, people who are part of that broad miasma of people and individuals and groups, isn't a viable tactic in the current situation. If you try no platforming people, particularly people like Sargon of Akkad, who clearly isn't a fascist, you are handing victory not only to Sargon, not only to our general political opponents, but by definition ultimately to the far right themselves. The far right and the populist right have got the ears of thousands and arguably millions of people now. You have to put forward better arguments. More importantly, it's not just about winning arguments, it's about what we do and what we don't do in communities. If we were a decent and healthy left, we would be in those communities directly ourselves and operating within them. We will be able to offer actions, involvement, practical improvements to people's lives. A practical and rational alternative which will improve the quality of life for working class people and for poor communities that are being savaged. If you can't do that, or you're not doing that, you're irrelevant. You can't no platform in this environment. It is about the arguments we have to win and the actions that we have to perform. This is precisely the tactical error which I highlighted in my Fascism for Left-Wing Dummies video. Suggest you watch it if you haven't. And you've played right into that trap. Again. And you're going to continue doing it. Postmodernism has lost. SJW culture has failed. And intersectionality has failed. You can't simply freak out and refuse to accept that. Your arguments are fucking nonsensical and stupid and irrelevant and backward.
Friends, which side are you on?
Alright, are you finished? Because I think the rest of the audience would like to hear what I have to say.
Liars with victim mentalities! Liars with victim mentalities! Rape culture is not a myth!
And people have better arguments. You've infected the left, and now the left doesn't have an adequate response to the problems that are raised justifiably against all of the bullshit that is the above.
The uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth.
So you've handed the moral high ground to the conservatives and to the right. The left needs to wake up. If it doesn't do so very quickly, start talking about class again, for fuck's sake. We've had it, it's over. Other people will start talking about that. Fuck Antifa, you're an irrelevance and you're an embarrassment.